It all started innocuously enough, with a laugh and a roll of the eyes. There I was, the archetypal skeptic, a man whose feet were firmly planted in the realm of logic and science. Then she came along, Ava, a whirlwind of mystery and allure, her beliefs as enigmatic as the night sky. She was a firm believer in the supernatural, a world I scoffed at but was about to be violently thrust into. Our meeting was like a scene straight out of a romantic movie. She was the kind of person who could talk about crystals, tarot cards, and ghosts with such conviction that even the most hardened disbelievers would pause to listen. And listen, I did. Her stories about communing with spirits were as fascinating as they were unbelievable. I remember our dates, filled with laughter and intense discussions. We'd walk under the starlit sky, her voice weaving tales about celestial entities and cosmic energies, while I playfully challenged her views. Despite my skepticism, I found myself irresistibly drawn to her. It was as if she had cast a spell on me. We shared an intense connection, a bond that seemed unbreakable, but beneath the surface, a storm was brewing. Her obsession with the supernatural world, which I initially found charming, soon became a source of conflict. She would always find a way to steer our conversations towards astrology or spirits. I tried to keep an open mind, but deep down, I knew this was all a facade, a game of make-believe she was too invested in. In a whirlwind of passion, we decided to move in together. The house we picked was an old 3-story building with an air of antiquity and mystery. It was as if the house itself was a character from one of Ava's ghost stories. We settled in, our days filled with love and our nights with whispered secrets and shared dreams. We even adopted 3 cats, each with their peculiar quirks and personalities. But as time passed, our perfect little world began to unravel. My skepticism towards her beliefs turned into annoyance, then outright disdain. I couldn't understand how someone as intelligent as Ava could believe in such absurdities. My patience wore thin, and my drinking, which started as a social activity, began to spiral out of control. I would find myself sneering and mocking her beliefs more often, unable to reconcile her Christian faith with her fascination with tarot and spirits. It felt like she was living in 2 contradictory worlds, and I was caught in the middle, struggling to make sense of it all. The night that changed everything began like any other. We had returned from a party with our friends, the air thick with the remnants of laughter and alcohol. Ava, her eyes glinting with that familiar mischievous spark, started on her usual tales of the supernatural. But that night, something inside me snapped. My patience, worn thin by my growing drinking problem, gave way to a reckless challenge. I remember the kitchen's dim light casting long shadows as I grabbed a notebook, my hands unsteady but determined. Scribbling a makeshift Ouija board, I declared, half in jest and half in defiance, that we'd put her beliefs to the test. Ava's face, usually so full of enthusiasm for the otherworldly, twisted in fear. She pleaded, her voice tinged with genuine terror, warning me of unseen dangers. But fueled by alcohol and a desire to debunk her beliefs, I pressed on. Using a cocky voice, I told Ava, "Come on, prove it to me. You claim you're connected with the supernatural world. Now it's a good time to prove it." In a moment of drunken bravado, I took a knife and sliced a small cut across my palm, letting drops of blood fall onto the paper. It was a foolish act, meant to add a dramatic flair to our game. We started playing, moving the makeshift planchette across the board. As expected, nothing happened. Dismissively, I crumpled the paper and threw it away, laughing off her fears. But our laughter died abruptly when a loud bang echoed through the house, followed by complete darkness as the power went out. The sudden shift from joviality to fear was palpable. I tried to maintain a facade of bravado, but inside, I was rattled. Ava clung to me, her body trembling. When the lights flickered back to life a minute later, we attempted to laugh it off, nervously joking about our overactive imaginations. That night, as we lay in bed, The eerie silence of the house felt suffocating. I couldn't shake off the feeling that our actions had invited something sinister into our home. Ava's breathing was shallow, her usual nighttime murmurs replaced by an unsettling quiet. The darkness seemed to press against the windows, a silent, oppressive force that weighed heavily on my chest. It was only the beginning. The following days felt charged with a heavy, ominous energy. I tried to convince myself it was all in my head, a product of too much alcohol and Ava's ghost stories. But deep down, I knew something had shifted that night. The once comforting walls of our home now seemed to close in on us, hiding secrets in their shadows. The nights following the Ouija board incident took a disturbing turn. It started with the nightmares, vivid and terrifying, jolting me awake in the early hours of the morning, always around 3 a.m. I would wake up drenched in sweat, heart pounding, with only fragmented images of my dreams lingering in my mind. The sense of dread they left behind was palpable, clinging to me like a second skin. Our house, once a sanctuary, began to feel like a trap. Strange occurrences became a daily ordeal. It was as if the walls themselves were whispering secrets I wasn't sure I wanted to uncover. I'd hear footsteps pacing above us in the dead of night, even though I knew we were alone in the house. Doors would creak open and slam shut with no discernible cause. These unexplained events were gradually chipping away at my skepticism, leaving me feeling exposed and vulnerable. Then came the incident that shook me to my core. One night, after yet another unsettling dream, I awoke to a chilling scene. There, on the floor, was a trail of blood. Panic gripped me as I followed the crimson trail to my office. 2 of our cats were there, their bodies rigid with fear, eyes wide and unblinking. But Nessie, our 3rd cat, was nowhere to be seen. Frantic, I searched the house, eventually finding Nessie cornered in the living room. She was visibly shaken, cowering as if hiding from an unseen predator. I examined her for injuries, but there was not a scratch on her. The blood, inexplicably, wasn't hers. I gathered all 3 cats and brought them to our room, my mind racing with unanswered questions. The house felt alive that night, charged with a malevolent energy. As I checked each room, every shadow seemed to dance and twist in the corner of my eye, as if mocking my fear. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the occasional creak of the old floorboards under my feet. Things only got worse from there. A string of bad luck followed, as if a dark cloud had settled over our lives. I lost my job, a position I'd held for 5 years. Food in the fridge would spoil overnight as if time itself was warped within our home. The strange noises continued, more persistent than ever. Our cats, once playful and curious, became skittish and anxious, often staring at empty corners or hissing at unseen entities. It felt like we were living in a perpetual state of unease, waiting for the next unexplainable event to occur. Ava, once so sure of her beliefs in the supernatural, began to falter under the weight of our reality. Our once loving home had turned into a labyrinth of fear and confusion, a place where shadows whispered and unseen forces lurked around every corner. The escalation of events in our once peaceful home reached a breaking point that I'll never forget. The nightmares and sleep paralysis episodes became more frequent and intense. In these terrifying moments of immobility, I'd see her, a figure shrouded in darkness, her presence both alluring and horrifying. She'd whisper things to me, her voice a siren's call, yet I couldn't recall her words upon waking. Each encounter left me more drained, more lost in the maze of my own fear. Then came the night that shattered everything. It was like any other night, filled with the now familiar sense of dread. But this time, something was different. In a particularly harrowing sleep paralysis episode, I saw her again, the shadowy woman. But as she drew closer, her visage twisted into something grotesque, her eyes burning with malevolence. I tried to scream, to move, but my body refused to respond. The terror was suffocating, a tangible force pressing down on me. When I finally broke free from the paralysis, Ava was there, pushing me, urging me to wake up. She asked if I was humming, a hint of fear in her voice, but I was too exhausted, too entangled in the remnants of the nightmare. So I only said, "Are you sure it was me?" I turned away and slipped back into a restless sleep. The next morning, I awoke to a world turned upside down. Ava hadn't slept at all. She sat there, bags packed, our cats in their carriers ready to leave. The look in her eyes was one of defeat, of someone who had seen too much and could bear no more. She explained that after she had woken me, she had seen shadows moving in the room and felt eyes watching her from every corner. In desperation, she had left the house, driving aimlessly through the night, seeking refuge from our haunted home. As she left, taking our cats with her, I felt a part of me leave with them. She was the one who had brought warmth and light into my life. And now she was gone, driven away by the very things she had once believed in. I tried to reach out to her, but my calls went unanswered, lost in the void between us. Since then, the occurrences have only grown more intense. The shadowy woman from my nightmares seems to be closing in, her whispers more insistent, urging me to join her. I know what she is implying, and the thought terrifies me. But part of me, a part darkened by fear and loneliness, wonders if it might be an escape from the nightmare my life has become. Now, as I sit alone in this house, surrounded by the echoes of a life that once was, I can't help but feel trapped. Trapped by my skepticism, by decisions made in arrogance, and by a presence that refuses to let go. I'm left wondering if this is my punishment, a penance for my disbelief, or just the beginning of an even darker journey.